If you look around my office, you might have realized I have kind of a love for dark and twisted cartoons. And a lot of that may be because I grew up with a lot of dark and twisted cartoons. Now, I'm not talking about the ones like Batman or the ones meant for older kids. I'm talking about the ones meant for little kids and probably shouldn't have been made for little kids. And I loved the hell out of them. I loved how much they scared me. I loved how every time you got through one, you felt a little tougher. So I'm doing a series reacting and reviewing them. We're gonna analyze how creative they are, how dark they are, and if the dark twisted tone was warranted. So join me in taking a look at some Dark Toons. What's a collection of some of the darkest elements of the darkest film genre ever missing? Goofy. How to Be a Detective was released in 1952. It's a satire film noir that you probably can't get away with today. Let's take a look. So this was directed by Jack Kinney, who's one of my favorite Disney directors when it comes to Disney cartoons, because he would have this great visual style, but also this great comedy. He had phenomenal timing. He did Donald Duck cartoons as well, and he did some of my favorite Goofy cartoons. And what's important to know about the time this came out, Goofy started off as being in the trio with two other big hit characters, obviously Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, and then they gave him his own cartoons where he did some stuff with like a little grasshopper. Maybe he'd be a little sidekick, whatever, but quickly he worked his way into these how-to series. You've seen a lot of these where how to swim, how to play football and such, and personally I like those the most because they're not always traditional Goofy. All the characters are goofy and they're usually relentlessly mean-spirited and the comedy in them is really great, but then it would become sort of this everyman series where he would have a family, he'd have a little son, and you see him do everyday stuff in suburbia. This came out in between. This came out while there was still that mean-spirited sense of humor, but it was also him kind of becoming literally the goofy everyman as well. So this is kind of a how-to series. It literally says how to be a detective, but doesn't necessarily take on that style. It is telling a story, sort of. You'll see what I mean here. And man, you want proof this is a dark cartoon? Look at literally its opening shot. This is gonna be a good cartoon. So film noir and detective stories were obviously very popular at the time in this cartoon. While clearly satirizing that, definitely pays homage to what makes them so great. I mean, look at this opening shot with these amazing shadows. Really embracing not just the night, but a foggy night. You can see just the little windows of yellow piercing through the blue there. Again, great contrast colors.
Every large city offers a wealth of opportunities.
And what a hilarious segue. You see this murder happen in front of you, and then you hear a narrator talking about the how-to series, which is really great. And the narrator, by the way, is Alan Reed, who you may recognize as Fred Flintstone. He actually narrated quite a few of these. He did another one of How to Be a Teacher with Goofy, where he also narrates that. And if you compare the voices, you do see that range because it is definitely that proper narration voice, but it's very different in these two cartoons.
Item number one, he needs office space.
Childish energy lets nothing stand in its way.
It's so funny to think this elegant voice can also go and do the rough and gruff voice of Fred Flintstone, literally a caveman. It's just, what a great talent. And this is some of the funniest stuff in this short. You cannot get away with violence like this anymore. But again, very much playing into that film noir style of the silhouettes and the shadows of people in the windows there. And just the various ways they're murdering each other is just so funny. That's Disney. Na, 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 na.
Item number one, he needs office space.
And there's two great jokes here. One is that there's an office available and you know exactly why, because the person in there probably was killed in a terrible way. And the second joke is that it's a detective and it's Goofy and there's literally a million crimes going on right under him and he completely misses them. Even Mickey Mouse looks uncomfortable to be in this cartoon.
Well, howdy, ma'am.
Find Al.
So the femme fatale walking in here, voiced again by the great June Foray, kind of continues this running joke that starts a little bit around this time in Goofy cartoons where you usually don't see the woman's face. In a lot of the later cartoons, Goofy is married and you don't see her. Whether it's a play on the idea of what the hell does a goofy woman look like? in this universe is unclear, or maybe it's one of those things where it's kind of the faceless any woman kind of thing. I'm not quite sure. Maybe the funniest one was in this Night cartoon where the face is covered, but you can clearly make out the Goofy nose and everything, and the lipstick is so thick it's literally piercing through the veil. All of that's very, very funny, but this one I think they wanted to play off of the attractive femme fatale, so you don't really see her in this. Again, I don't think they knew how to draw a Goofy-style dog in an attractive way, so they just always kept the face absent. You never see it.
Find Al.
So all you get is her saying, find Al. Al who? You don't know who it is, and I'll just give you a little bit of a spoiler here. It's not that great an ending. I mean, it's a cute joke, but it's not. It's a lot of build-up for it, but I feel like that's not where the enjoyment of this really lies. It lies in the atmosphere and the creativity of it. I mean, even just look at what's in her purse. That's a femme fatale handbag.
Now listen, you leave this Al case to the police.
You got P coming in as the head police saying, stay out of this, leave this Al case to the police, which again is a very typical film noir thing. The cops and the detectives always butting heads. And then you got this thug introduced in, again, a classic film noir way with the shadows, you know, behind the window here. And he's played by a weasel, and again, this is starting to get away from the Goofy characters playing every single character there. You already have Pete, you have a weasel, and yes, in the windows they look kind of goofy-ish, but you still can't see them. So again, they're kind of playing around with a style that would eventually take over the Goofy cartoons.
Your rod, your gat, your gun.
Again, always something funny about the fact that Goofy is not only packing heat, but he has something to knock somebody out with too. When you really think about it, it's really messed up. You don't associate this with Goofy that much.
Oh, yeah? Well, take this.
Case in point, you don't usually see Goofy do that nowadays.
And how to take it.
And that's another one of my favorite jokes. He knocks somebody out, yet he's the one that's unconscious and wakes up in an alley. That is very surreal, but very funny. I feel like that's a joke you'd see nowadays.
Say, do you know Al?
Don't hear you.
I like how this weasel character keeps popping up in various jobs, still usually wearing the same outfit, like the same thug outfit, just with like a bartender coat or something over him. Another cute joke, taking out Goofy with goofballs, which was pretty much another way of saying narcotics back then. Resulting in, again, a visual you don't usually see in a Goofy cartoon.
Looks like I'm getting to the bottom of this case.
Doesn't even faze him. He's just happy he's getting closer to the answer.
Let the police handle this Al case.
Man, there's a wonderful shot, and again, really paying homage to classic, like, tilted angles, film noir, very, very dark shadows and stuff. But what I like about this, because it's animated, I mean, now you could do this, you know, building models and stuff, but back then, I mean, animation was the only place where you could get an angle like this, where the building actually kind of tilts with the angle. Like, you have a wide, fisheye lens there, but it's actually tilting back as well, and that's one of the great things that only animation could do at that time. Another cameo from the Weasel here, literally giving him the shaft, resulting in another pretty great joke.
Beat it, and don't come back till you're ready.
Everyone takes everything morbidly light in this world. I kind of love it. This is another joke I feel like you would see today because it's kind of playing with expectations. He goes into this phone booth, gets shot 1,000,000 times, and isn't even touched. And it's never referenced why. It's merely playing with expectations. It's giving no logical reason, even in the cartoony context of the world. It's unexpected, and the cluelessness on his face just makes it funnier. So a car tries to kill off Goofy, he tells a cab to follow that car, and this is a pretty clever joke because this indicates he's been followed the whole time, like you always see in film noir, because you have Pete say, follow that car, and then you have the femme fatale say, follow that car, and they're all Al's taxis as well. So again, there's kind of like these clues, but they're kind of not at the same time. It's one of those funny cartoons where if you read into it, there's some layers to it, but they don't amount to much, which does make it a little funnier. This chase is pretty fun. It's essentially the climax of the cartoon, and again, there are some good backgrounds here and some fun angles. Like, look at that. Oh my god. Don't you want to go into that place? Don't you want to know what that place is? But no, that's just a random house they're passing, and good lord, it's just painted so beautifully. Like, I want a cartoon just about that place. I want them to go in there, have a haunted house story. Really has like a Charles Addams vibe to it. Just really beautiful. I never really got what happened here. The car stopped, just kicks him out, and then he gets in the next taxi with Pete. I'll just be honest, I don't follow that. I always thought it was kind of a weak joke, whatever it was trying to do. Maybe again in film noir, everybody's just a jerk, but then why did the other taxi stop? I don't know. I do like this idea that the weasel is now in the backseat of the car, indicating he was not driving the car originally, which means he pretty much told the taxi driver to try and kill that guy, which again is pretty funny when you think about it. Again, this is a very hyper, silly chase. The one thing I like that they do a little differently in this that you don't, in my opinion, see much in film noir, or maybe you do because it's black and white, is that they do it a little bit more like it's either dusk or dawn. It's hard to tell exactly, but it gives a little bit more color in there, and you can kind of play with the palette a little bit more. I feel like it would have been easy to make this black and white, but I'm glad they didn't, because that little bit of color, especially like when you see the yellow from the lights and the windows and stuff, does add a little bit to it. Again, very nice background, not a lot of detail, but again, because they have it at either dusk or dawn, whenever this is supposed to be, you get a nice kind of fog effect there, and it just creates this nice kind of mysterious atmosphere to it. That, again, doesn't need a ton of detail, but you still get the idea, like you feel like you can still breathe in that environment, like you can just feel the cold of either that morning or that night. They finally crash, and here we get the big payoff. Al is Pete.
Al Muldoon, where have you been?
And it turns out he was trying to skip out on his wedding, where the weasel is the priest.
I told you to leave this case alone.
Guess that proves that crime don't pay.
Dudes and commitment. It's cute and definitely a joke at the time, but I guess it raises a lot of questions. Like, how is the weasel a priest or minister or whatever the hell he is in this? Is it just one of his side jobs? If so, I guess that does make it a little funnier that he's constantly trying to kill people, just seemingly random people at the same time, but wouldn't he be wanting to find Al as well? I mean, why would he be trying to get rid of Goofy? I think it's one of those you're not supposed to think that hard about, but I feel like it would be funnier if they kind of went back and they got all those details, but maybe that's kind of what makes a lot of people laugh at. Like, if you really think back, it doesn't make sense, and that's where the comedy comes from. I'm not sure. It was never that satisfying an ending to me, but what I really do enjoy is the atmosphere of it, is the dark humor of the rest of it, and how relentlessly violent it is, especially in the opening. There's a lot of great shadow work, there's a lot of great atmosphere, some fun backgrounds. Like I said, some of them didn't even need to look that great. I'm still thinking of that haunted house at the top of that hill, and that's only in there for like a second, but it looks amazing. I'm never gonna forget that visual. So this is a fun cartoon. I actually don't think it's one of the great Goofy cartoons, but I still think there is some great artwork in it and some decent laughs in it. And yeah, like I said, there is something that's really fun about seeing a character you usually do not see in these scenarios suddenly in these scenarios. Like I said, I mean, knocking a dude out and with cement shoes at the bottom of the sea. What do you think of this cartoon? Did you even get a chance to see this cartoon? Because I'm just assuming this is one Disney probably doesn't run that often, probably because it is so dark and violent. If you have seen it, what are your thoughts? If this is your first time seeing it, what are your thoughts? Is this something you want to check out? Or do you think, the humor maybe wouldn't add up for you? Or do you think you're like me, where you're just like, dude, it's just so mean-spirited in a way you don't usually see with Goofy nowadays that it's pretty enjoyable. Hey everyone, if there's any particular cartoon you want me to look at as being very dark or twisted, leave it in the comments below. Again, I'm not really looking for movie scenes or cartoons meant for teenagers or older. I'm talking about ones meant for little kids, but still scare the shit out of you. Whether it's an old cartoon or a new cartoon, let me know what you want me to look at.